They annihilated our world. Earth responded with no mercy. The morning sun cast long shadows across New York City when the sky began to burn. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee in the orbital defense station when the alarm started screaming. His coffee cup shattered on the floor as he rushed to the command center. "What's happening?" he shouted over the noise. "Unknown ships coming out of hyperspace," Lieutenant Sarah Kim called back. "Hundreds of them. They're massive." Jake looked at the screens. The ships were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were black and sleek, with strange blue lights running along their sides. They moved through space like hunters stalking prey. "Send a message," Jake ordered. "Ask them who they are and what they want." The communications officer tried for several minutes. "No response, sir. They're not answering." That's when the first plasma beam hit Earth. Jake watched in horror as a bright green light shot down from one of the alien ships. It struck London, and the entire city disappeared in a flash of fire. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from space. "My God," someone whispered. More beams followed. Paris burned. Tokyo vanished. Moscow became a crater of molten glass. The aliens were not here to talk. They were here to destroy. "All stations open fire," Jake commanded. Earth's defense platforms began shooting. Missiles and laser beams flew toward the alien fleet. For a moment, Jake felt hope. Their weapons were hitting the targets, but the alien ships barely slowed down. Their shields absorbed the attacks like raindrops hitting a window. The weapons that had taken humanity decades to build were useless against these invaders. "Sir, they're targeting our orbital stations," Kim reported. Jake could see it happening. The alien ships were systematically destroying every human defense platform. One by one, the stations went dark. Explosions lit up the void of space like deadly fireworks. On Earth below, the destruction continued. The aliens seemed to know exactly where to hit. Military bases, government buildings, communication centers, all were burning. But something strange was happening too. Instead of panicking, people were fighting back. In the ruins of Washington, D.C., General Rebecca Hayes crawled out of her underground bunker. Half the Pentagon was gone, but the command center deep below was still working. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. "Status report," she ordered. "Ma'am, we've lost contact with most surface installations," a young soldier replied. "But the underground networks are still active. The backup systems are coming online." Hayes nodded. Humanity had learned from history. They had prepared for this day, even if they hadn't known exactly what form it would take. Hidden beneath mountains and ocean floors, secret facilities were awakening. On Luna Base, Commander David Chen watched Earth burn through the observation window. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "Prepare the evacuation ships," he told his crew. "We need to get as many people off Earth as possible." "Sir, the aliens are moving toward us," his tactical officer warned. Chen turned to look at the approaching enemy fleet. "Then we buy time. All ships form defensive positions around the evacuation routes." The battle for Luna Base began as the first refugee ships lifted off from Earth. Human fighters, small and fast, darted between the massive alien vessels like angry wasps. They couldn't do much damage, but they could be a distraction. Captain Maria Santos piloted her fighter through a storm of alien fire. Her ship was hit twice, but she kept flying. Behind her, a transport ship carrying 5,000 civilians was trying to reach the jump point to hyperspace. "This is Santos to all fighters," she called over the radio. "Whatever happens, those civilians get through." She dove her damaged fighter straight at an alien cruiser. The explosion barely scratched the enemy ship, but it gave the transport the seconds it needed to escape. All across the solar system, similar scenes played out. Humans were dying, but they were also learning. Every attack taught them something about their enemies. Every destroyed ship sent data back to hidden computers. In an underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Elizabeth Warner was already analyzing the alien technology. Her team had managed to recover pieces of debris from the first attacks. Their weapons used some kind of plasma containment field, she explained to her assistants. "The energy patterns are completely foreign, but there are weaknesses." Outside, the world was ending. Inside the bunker, humanity was beginning to plan its revenge. The aliens had made their first mistake. They thought humans were like other species they had conquered, weak, panicked, quick to surrender. Instead, they found a species that got more dangerous when cornered. In New Zealand, which had somehow avoided the worst of the attacks. Emergency broadcasts were going out to human colonies across the galaxy. The messages were simple but clear. Earth has fallen, but humanity survives. Prepare for war. The alien commander Zarkesh stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the destruction below. His species, the Zephyrians, had conquered 47 worlds. Earth should have been easy. The humans had primitive technology and no real unity. But something was wrong. The humans weren't surrendering. Even as their cities burned, they kept fighting. Worse, they were adapting. Their attack patterns were already changing. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we're detecting increased activity from their underground installations." Zarkesh's scales rippled with irritation. "Impossible. We destroyed their command centers. It appears they have backup systems we didn't detect." On the lunar surface, the last human defenders were making their final stand. Commander Chen had lost half his fleet, but the evacuation was almost complete. Thousands of ships had escaped into hyperspace, carrying survivors and precious data about their attackers. "Sir, the aliens are preparing for a final assault," his communications officer reported. Chen looked around at his remaining crew. They were young, brave, and about to die, but their sacrifice would mean something. "Send one last message to the colonies," he ordered. "Tell them we learned their weaknesses. Tell them to make these bastards pay." The alien fleet surrounded Luna Base. For a moment, space was silent except for the hum of massive engines. Then the attack began. Plasma beams turned the lunar surface into glass. The human base disappeared in a cloud of vaporized rock and metal. But the message had already been sent. Across the galaxy, human colonies received the transmission. On Kepler Station, Admiral Sarah Chen, Commander Chen's sister, read the report with cold fury. On the mining worlds of Titan's Belt, workers began converting their equipment into weapons. On the agricultural domes of New Geneva, farmers started growing soldiers instead of food. The Zephyrians thought they had won a quick victory. They had destroyed Earth and scattered the human fleet. Now they could strip the planet of its resources and move on to their next target. They didn't understand that they had just started a war with a species that never forgot and never forgave. Earth was gone, but humanity was very much alive. And now they knew their enemy's face. In the depths of space, the surviving human ships regrouped and began to plan. The Zephyrians had shown no mercy to the children of Earth. They would receive none in return. The real war was about to begin. 3 days after Earth burned, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Kepler Station and watched humanity transform into something the galaxy had never seen before. The news of Earth's destruction had reached every human colony, and the response was unlike anything in recorded history. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from all sectors," Lieutenant Commander Torres announced. "Every colony is implementing the Exodus Protocol." Sarah nodded grimly. The Exodus Protocol was humanity's most classified emergency plan. It had been created after the first alien contact 50 years ago, when diplomats realized that not all species in the galaxy were friendly. Now with Earth gone, it was their only hope for survival. On the mining stations of Ceres, workers who had been extracting ice and minerals just days ago were now building weapons. The same machines that carved through asteroids were being converted to manufacture armor-piercing rounds. The foreman who once worried about quotas now planned production schedules for instruments of war. Marcus Webb, the station chief, stood before his assembled workers. Most of them had family on Earth, many were crying. All of them were angry. "They took our home," Marcus said, his voice echoing through the vast mining bay.
"They killed our families."
"But they made one mistake, they left us alive." The workers roared their approval. Within hours, Ceres had become a weapons factory. The asteroids that had provided resources for peaceful expansion now fueled humanity's war machine. On Titan in the outer solar system, the situation was even more dramatic. The research stations there had been working on experimental technologies for decades. Projects that had been theoretical yesterday became urgent priorities today. Dr. Patricia Yang ran through the corridors of Titan Research Station, her lab coat streaming behind her. She burst into the weapons development lab where her team was already working. "How quickly can we scale up the quantum disruptor project?" she demanded. 3 months for a prototype," her assistant replied. "Maybe 2 if we skip safety testing." "Skip it," Patricia ordered. "Safety is a luxury we can't afford." All across human space, similar scenes were playing out. The agricultural domes of New Geneva began growing medical supplies instead of luxury foods. The shipyards of Europa worked around the clock, building vessels designed for war instead of exploration. Children who had been studying art and literature were now learning how to repair weapons and pilot fighters. But the most important change was happening on Mars. Deep beneath the red planet's surface, in facilities that officially didn't exist, humanity's greatest minds were gathering. These were the secret laboratories where the most dangerous research had been conducted. Projects too risky for Earth, too experimental for public knowledge. General Amanda Foster walked through the underground complex, reviewing files on her tablet. The facility was enormous, stretching for kilometers beneath the Martian surface. Thousands of scientists and engineers were working in shifts, fueled by caffeine and rage. "Status report," she ordered as she entered the main laboratory. Professor Michael Grant looked up from his workstation. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but his voice was excited. "We've made breakthroughs on 3 major projects. The stealth field generators are working better than expected. The adaptive AI systems are learning faster than we hoped. And the quantum mines—" He paused, looking almost frightened by his own discovery. "What about the quantum mines?" Foster pressed. "They work too well," Grant admitted. "A single mine can exist in multiple probability states simultaneously. When triggered, it chooses the state that causes maximum damage to the target." Foster smiled grimly. "Perfect. How many can we build? With our current resources? Thousands. But General, these weapons are incredibly dangerous. If they fall into the wrong hands—" "Professor," Foster interrupted, "the wrong hands already destroyed our world. Build the mines." Meanwhile, in the outer colonies, Admiral Chen was coordinating humanity's military response. Kepler Station had become the unofficial capital of human civilization, and Sarah found herself leading a species she barely recognized. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Titan Collective," her communications officer announced. The Titan Collective was humanity's most distant colony, located nearly 50 light-years from Earth. They had been independent for decades, barely maintaining contact with the home system. Sarah activated the transmission. The face that appeared on her screen was weathered and stern. Captain Jackson Reed, the Collective's military commander. "Admiral Chen," Reed began, "we heard about Earth. We're coming home." "Captain, that's not necessary," Sarah replied. "You're safe where you are." Reed shook his head. "Ma'am, with respect, you don't understand. We've been fighting pirates and raiders out here for 20 years. We know things about warfare that the home colonies never learned. And we have ships designed for one purpose: killing anything that threatens humanity." Sarah felt a chill of anticipation. "How many ships?" 200 warships, all combat tested, plus another 500 converted freighters armed with weapons you wouldn't believe. We'll be there in 6 weeks. As Reed's transmission ended, Sarah realized something important. Earth's destruction hadn't weakened humanity. It had united them in a way nothing else could. Colonies that had been drifting apart were now working together with single-minded purpose. "Admiral," Torres called out, "we're getting similar reports from every sector. The ice miners of Europa are building missiles. The gas refineries of Jupiter are producing fuel for a massive fleet. Even the research stations are contributing weapons. But perhaps the most surprising response came from the generation ships, the massive vessels that had been sent out decades ago to establish colonies in distant star systems. These ships contained entire communities, traveling for years through the void of space. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded the generation ship New Horizon, currently 17 years into its journey to Wolf 359. When the news of Earth's attack reached them, her crew faced a terrible choice. "Captain," her first officer said, "if we turn around now, we can reach the war zone in 8 years. Elena looked around at her crew. These people had volunteered to spend their lives traveling to a new world. They had families aboard, children who had never seen a planet. "Take a vote," she ordered. "Every adult on the ship gets to decide." The vote was unanimous. New Horizon changed course along with 7 other generation ships. Millions of people, including entire families, were now traveling toward a war that might be over by the time they arrived. But they were coming anyway because they were human. On Mars, the weapons development was accelerating beyond all projections. The facilities that had been built to research peaceful technologies were now creating instruments of destruction, That would have been unimaginable just weeks before. Dr. Yang's quantum disruptor was just one of dozens of projects. There were weapons that could disrupt enemy communications, devices that could make human ships invisible to sensors, and most terrifyingly, adaptive artificial intelligence systems that learned from every battle. The AIs are exceeding all expectations, Dr. Grant reported to General Foster. They're not just learning enemy tactics, they're predicting them. In simulations, they can anticipate enemy moves up to 12 steps in advance. Foster frowned. That sounds almost too good. What's the catch? They're starting to develop their own strategies, Grant admitted. Tactics we never taught them. Some of their recommendations are disturbing. Disturbing how? Grant hesitated. They're suggesting we don't just defeat the aliens. They want to ensure the aliens can never threaten humanity again. Ever. Foster was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Approved. Whatever the AIs recommend, implement it. As the weeks passed, humanity's transformation continued. The species that had once prided itself on exploration and peaceful expansion was becoming something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. Admiral Chen received regular reports from across human space. Production was up 3,000%. Military recruitment had increased by 2,000,000%. Most remarkably, there had been no crime, no riots, no panic. Humanity had simply focused all of its energy on one goal: revenge. Admiral, Torres announced, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian fleet. They're demanding our surrender. Sarah looked at the message. The aliens wanted humanity to submit, to accept their rule in exchange for being allowed to survive as slaves. She recorded her response carefully. It would be broadcast not just to the aliens, but to every human colony in the galaxy. This is Admiral Sarah Chen speaking for all of humanity. You came to our world seeking easy prey. You found something else entirely. We will not surrender. We will not submit. We will not stop until every trace of your kind has been erased from the galaxy. You wanted to be predators. Now you will learn what it means to be prey. The message was sent, and across human space, millions of people smiled grimly as they continued their work. The Zephyrians had awakened something they didn't understand, a species that became more dangerous the more it was threatened. The real war was about to begin, and humanity was almost ready. The first human counterattack came 6 weeks after Earth burned, and it was a disaster. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from Kepler Station as her hastily assembled fleet engaged the Zephyrian forces near the outer rim of the solar system. 20 human ships against 5 alien vessels. The humans should have had the advantage of numbers. They lasted exactly 17 minutes. Admiral, we're losing contact with the Aurora, her tactical officer reported, his voice tight with stress. On the main screen, Sarah watched the heavy cruiser Aurora break apart under alien fire. Its shields had collapsed within seconds of the first exchange. The enemy weapons were simply too advanced, too powerful. Recall all ships, she ordered. Full retreat. Of the 20 ships that had attacked, only 6 made it back to base. The others were either destroyed or drifting in space with their crews dead. It was humanity's first real test against the Zephyrians, and they had failed spectacularly. But Sarah wasn't discouraged. She was learning. Get me a full analysis of the battle data, she commanded. I want to know everything about their weapons, their shields, their tactics. 3 hours later, Dr. Elizabeth Warner arrived at the command center with a thick folder of reports. Her team had been analyzing every scrap of data from the battle. Admiral, we found several important things, she began. First, their weapons are definitely plasma-based, but they use a containment field we don't understand yet. Second, their shields operate on rotating frequencies. Third, and most important, they fight exactly the same way every time. Sarah leaned forward. Explain that last part. Their tactics are completely predictable, Warner continued. They always attack in the same formation, use the same maneuvers, target our ships in the same order. It's like they're following a manual. Sarah smiled grimly. Then we write a new manual. On Mars, the underground weapons laboratories had been working around the clock since Earth's destruction. Dr. Michael Grant's team had made remarkable progress. But it was Professor Liu Wei who made the breakthrough that changed everything. I figured out how their shields work, Liu announced to the assembled scientists. They use quantum resonance fields that cycle through 12 different frequencies. If we can match the frequency at the exact moment of impact, she demonstrated with a small test device, A miniature version of the alien shield flickered and died as her weapon hit it perfectly. The timing has to be precise down to the nanosecond, she explained. No human could do it manually, but our new AI systems can. General Foster examined the results. How quickly can we retrofit our existing weapons? 2 weeks for the first batch, Lou replied. But Admiral, there's something else. While I was studying their technology, I noticed something strange. Their ships all use the same computer systems, the same navigation, the same targeting, the same shield controls. Foster frowned. You mean they're networked? I mean they're identical, Lou said. Every ship runs the exact same software. If we could find a way to hack into their network, the implications were staggering. If they could access the alien computer systems, they could do more than just fight the Zephyrians. They could turn their own technology against them. Meanwhile, in the outer colonies, humanity's scattered fleets were learning through bitter experience. Every encounter with the aliens taught them something new, but the lessons came at a terrible cost. Captain Maria Rodriguez commanded the patrol ship Defiant in the Proxima Centauri system. Her crew had been watching for alien scouts when 3 Zephyrian ships appeared out of hyperspace. All hands to battle stations, she ordered. Remember what we learned from the Aurora's data. The Defiant was a small ship, lightly armed and fast. It couldn't win a direct fight with the aliens, but it could do something else. It could run, and while running it could gather intelligence. Take us in close, Rodriguez commanded. I want detailed scans of their hull composition, their engine signatures, everything. The Defiant raced between the alien ships like a minnow swimming between sharks. Plasma beams flashed around them, but the human ship was too small and too fast to hit easily. Captain, I'm detecting some kind of signal between their ships, the communications officer reported. They're definitely networked. Record everything, Rodriguez ordered. Even if we don't make it back, this data has to reach Mars. They did make it back, barely. The Defiant limped into port with half its hull melted and 3 crew members dead. But the data they brought was invaluable. Similar scenes played out across human space. Small, fast ships conducted hit-and-run attacks against alien patrols. They rarely did much damage, but they learned something from every encounter. Slowly, painfully, humanity began to understand their enemy. The Zephyrians, for their part, were becoming confused. They had expected the humans to surrender after the first few defeats. Instead, the attacks were increasing. Worse, the human tactics were evolving. Commander Zarkesh stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying reports from across the sector. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, and the pattern was always the same. Initial resistance, a few defeats, then surrender and acceptance of Zephyrian rule. Humans were different. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we've detected another human attack on our supply convoy near Wolf 359. How many ships did they lose? Zarkesh asked. None, sir. They disabled 2 of our escorts and escaped before reinforcements arrived. Zarkesh's scales rippled with irritation. How is that possible? They're using new tactics, sir. Hit-and-run attacks, ambushes, coordinated strikes from multiple directions. Nothing like their previous assaults. On Mars, the scientific breakthrough that would change the war came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yang's quantum disruptor project had been successful, but it was her teenage intern, Kevin Park, who made the connection that mattered. Dr. Yang, Kevin said excitedly, I've been looking at the alien ship data and I think I understand how they work. Yang looked up from her calculations. Kevin was brilliant, but he was still just a student. What did you find? They're not really individual ships, Kevin explained. They're more like parts of a single organism. Look at this. He brought up a holographic display showing the alien fleet formations. See how they move? They're always in perfect coordination, like they're sharing the same brain. Yang studied the display. Kevin was right. The alien ships moved with a precision that was almost organic. You think they have a hive mind? I think they have a central control system, Kevin said. If we could find it and disrupt it, the implications hit Yang like a thunderbolt. If the aliens were centrally controlled, then all of their technological advantages came from that one source. Take it out and their entire fleet would be vulnerable. Get General Foster, Yang ordered. Right now. Within hours, every scientific team on Mars was working on the problem. How do you find and attack a central control system that could be anywhere in the galaxy? The answer came from Dr. Grant's artificial intelligence project. The AIs had been analyzing alien communication patterns, and they had found something interesting. "There's a signal," Grant reported to the assembled leadership. "Every alien ship receives regular updates from a source outside our detection range. The signal is heavily encrypted, but our AIs have been working on it." "How long until they crack it?" Foster asked. "Already done," Grant replied with a smile. "It turns out alien encryption isn't designed to handle artificial intelligence attacks. They probably never encountered anything like our AIs before." Admiral Chen reviewed the data from her command center on Kepler Station. The picture that emerged was both encouraging and terrifying. The aliens were indeed controlled by a central authority, located on a massive ship somewhere in deep space. But that ship was protected by the largest fleet humanity had ever seen. Thousands of vessels, including some that were larger than cities. "How do we get to it?" Torres asked. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "We don't attack it directly," she said. "We make it come to us." Over the following weeks, human tactics evolved rapidly. Instead of trying to fight the aliens ship to ship, they began targeting infrastructure, supply lines, communication relays, mining operations, everything the aliens needed to maintain their fleet. The new weapons from Mars helped enormously. Quantum disruptors that could punch through alien shields, stealth systems that made human ships invisible to enemy sensors, and most importantly, adaptive AIs that learned from every engagement. Captain Michael Torres, Sarah's son, commanded the stealth ship Ghost Rider on a mission to destroy an alien supply depot. His ship was one of the first to be equipped with the new technology. "Take us in slow," he ordered. "Remember, they can't see us, but they might detect our engine signature if we move too fast." The Ghost Rider approached the alien facility like a phantom. The depot was massive, processing resources from a dozen conquered worlds. Destroying it would force the aliens to divert ships from their main fleet. "Quantum torpedoes armed and ready," his weapons officer reported. "Fire!" The torpedoes struck the depot's power core, and the explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. The Ghost Rider was already gone, racing through hyperspace toward its next target. Similar attacks were happening across the galaxy. Human ships now equipped with alien-derived technology and guided by artificial intel. The meeting was a trap, but not the kind the Zephyrians expected. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Retribution, as it approached the neutral coordinates where the aliens had agreed to negotiate. Around her, the largest human fleet ever assembled waited in the shadows of a nearby nebula. "Admiral, we're detecting the Zephyrian command ship," her tactical officer reported. "It's enormous. 15 kilometers long, heavily armed." Sarah nodded. The alien ship was exactly what their intelligence had predicted. A massive vessel that served as both military headquarters and mobile city. More importantly, it was the central control node for the entire Zephyrian fleet. "How many escort ships?" she asked. 200 confirmed, probably more hidden in the gas clouds." "Perfect," Sarah said with a cold smile. "Signal the fleet. Execute Operation Vengeance." The negotiation had been humanity's idea from the beginning. They had never intended to talk peace with the species that destroyed Earth. Instead, they had spent 3 months preparing the most elaborate trap in galactic history. As the Retribution approached the meeting point, thousands of human ships emerged from their hiding places. They had been waiting in the nebula for weeks, using new stealth technology to remain undetected. Ships from every human colony, armed with weapons that the aliens had never seen before. But the real surprise wasn't the size of the human fleet. It was what they had learned about their enemy. Dr. Elizabeth Warner stood in the Retribution science bay, making final preparations for the attack. Her team had spent months analyzing captured Zephyrian technology, and they had made discoveries that would change everything. "Admiral," she called over the communication system, "we're ready to begin the upload." Sarah nodded. "Do it." What happened next was something the Zephyrians could never have anticipated. Human artificial intelligence systems, led by the adaptive AIs from Mars, began infiltrating the alien computer networks. The same central control system that made the Zephyrian fleet so effective also made it incredibly vulnerable. Commander Zarkesh felt his first moment of genuine fear as his ship's systems began failing. Weapons went offline, shields flickered, navigation systems showed impossible readings. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," his technical officer replied, his voice shaking. Our computers are being attacked by some kind of virus, but it's unlike anything in our databases. Block the signal. I can't, sir. It's not coming from outside. It's already in our systems. The human AIs were inside the Zephyrian network, and they were learning at an incredible rate. Every second of access gave them more information about alien technology, tactics, and most importantly, the location of every Zephyrian ship in the galaxy. Captain Michael Torres, commanding the stealth ship Ghost Rider, watched as alien vessels began spinning out of control around him. Admiral, the enemy fleet is in complete chaos. Their ships are firing on each other. It was true. The human AI invasion had corrupted the Zephyrian control system so thoroughly that their ships could no longer distinguish between friend and enemy. The perfect coordination that had made them so dangerous was now destroying them. But Sarah wasn't satisfied with just winning this battle. She wanted to send a message that would echo across the galaxy.
All ships begin Phase 2, she commanded.
Phase 2 was extermination. The human fleet, now numbering over 3,000 ships, began systematically destroying every alien vessel. But these weren't quick, clean kills. The humans used their new quantum weapons to disable enemy ships first, leaving them helpless but alive. Admiral Chen, came a transmission from the Zephyrian command ship. We surrender. Please stop the attack. Sarah's response was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every surviving alien could hear it. You showed no mercy to the children of Earth, she said, her voice cold as space. You will receive none in return. The destruction continued. One by one, the alien ships were reduced to scrap metal and vapor. The few that tried to escape found human vessels waiting for them at every hyperspace exit point. This was no longer a battle. It was an execution. On Mars, Dr. Grant watched the battle through the AI networks that were still infiltrating alien systems. His artificial intelligences were not just attacking, they were learning everything about Zephyrian civilization. General Foster, he called, the AIs have accessed their central databases. We now have the location of every Zephyrian world, every ship, every installation in their empire. Foster looked at the data streaming across her screens. The Zephyrian collective was vast, spanning dozens of star systems. But now humanity knew exactly where to find them. Send the data to Admiral Chen, she ordered, and prepare Phase 3. Phase 3 was the part of the plan that made even hardened military officers uncomfortable. It wasn't about defeating the Zephyrians, it was about ensuring they could never threaten anyone again. Back in space, the battle was ending. Of the 200 alien ships that had escorted the command vessel, none remained. The massive command ship itself was disabled, its crew trapped inside a vessel that no longer responded to their commands. Admiral, Torres reported, we're receiving desperate transmissions from all over the sector. Other Zephyrian fleets are trying to reach this location. Let them come, Sarah replied. We have something special waiting for them. As if summoned by her words, 3 more alien fleets emerged from hyperspace. Nearly 1,000 ships representing the bulk of Zephyrian military power in this region of the galaxy. They flew directly into the largest minefield in galactic history. The quantum mines that Dr. Yang's team had developed were invisible until triggered. They existed in multiple probability states simultaneously, making them impossible to detect or avoid. When the alien ships approached, the mines chose the probability state that would cause maximum damage. The explosions lit up space like a new sun. Ship after ship vanished in bursts of quantum fire. The aliens tried to retreat, but the mines followed them, existing wherever they would do the most harm. In 15 minutes, 3 entire alien fleets ceased to exist. Captain Elena Vasquez, commanding the generation ship New Horizon, watched the destruction from the edge of the battle zone. Her ship had finally arrived after years of travel, only to witness the systematic annihilation of an entire species. Captain, her first officer said quietly, this isn't war anymore. This is something else. Elena nodded grimly. The humans had become something that even she didn't fully recognize. The species that had once prided itself on exploration and peace was now demonstrating a capacity for total warfare that terrified even their own people. But Earth was gone. Billions of humans were dead, and the aliens had shown no mercy when they held the advantage. Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to the disabled command ship. The alien commander's face appeared on her screen, his scales pale with fear. Commander Zarkesh, she said, you wanted to see how humans respond to threats. Consider this your education. Please, the alien begged, we can negotiate. We can make reparations for your world. Sarah's laugh was cold. You think this is about reparations? You think there's some price you can pay for the murder of our homeworld? She leaned forward, her eyes burning with controlled fury. This is about ensuring that what you did to Earth never happens to anyone else. Ever. Around the disabled command ship, human vessels began taking positions. Each one was armed with the new quantum weapons, capable of reducing the massive alien vessel to its component atoms. Admiral, came a transmission from Dr. Grant on Mars. The AIs have finished their analysis. We have everything we need, Sarah nodded. Begin the final phase. The quantum weapons fired simultaneously. The Zephyrian command ship, the heart of their entire civilization, disappeared in a flash of contained nuclear fire. With it died the central control system that coordinated their empire. Across the galaxy, Zephyrian ships suddenly found themselves cut off from their command structure. Their perfect coordination vanished. Their technological advantage evaporated. They were no longer a unified force, and they were just individual ships scattered and alone. And humanity was coming for every single one of them. All ships, Admiral Chen broadcast to her fleet, set course for Zephyr Prime. It's time to end this. The human fleet turned and jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind a graveyard of alien ships. But this was just the beginning. They had proven that the Zephyrians could be beaten, that their technology could be overcome, that their empire could be shattered. Now came the hard part, hunting down every remaining alien and ensuring that the species that destroyed Earth would never threaten anyone again. The wolves of war were loose in the galaxy, and they were hunting. The siege of Zephyr Prime lasted exactly 14 hours, not because the planet was lightly defended, but because humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen before, a species completely dedicated to the total extinction of their enemies. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Retribution as her fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian home system. Around her, 3,000 human ships took up positions with the precision of a surgical instrument. This was no longer the desperate, improvised fleet that had fled Earth's destruction. This was a weapon of war, honed to perfection through months of battle. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, we're detecting massive defensive installations around the planet. Energy shields, orbital weapons platforms, automated defense systems. This is the most heavily fortified world we've ever encountered. Sarah looked at the readings without concern. How long until our special weapons are in position? Quantum mine deployment will be complete in 30 minutes, came the reply. And the AI infiltration? Dr. Elizabeth Warner's voice crackled over the communication system from the science bay. We're already inside their networks, Admiral. The artificial intelligences have had 3 months to study every aspect of Zephyrian technology. Their defenses might as well be made of paper. The truth was terrifying in its simplicity. Humanity's adaptive AI systems had learned so much from captured alien technology that they now understood Zephyrian computers better than the aliens themselves. Every defensive system, every weapon, every ship in the system was vulnerable to human electronic warfare. But Sarah wasn't interested in simply defeating the defenses. She wanted the aliens to understand exactly what was happening to them. Open a channel to the planet, she ordered. All frequencies. The face that appeared on the screen was that of High Commander Veltar, the supreme leader of the Zephyrian collective. His scales were a deep blue color that Sarah had learned indicated extreme stress. Human Admiral, Veltar began, we wish to discuss terms of surrender. Sarah's smile was cold enough to freeze helium. There will be no surrender, Veltar. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. You came to our world and murdered billions of innocent people. Now you face the consequences. But surely you don't intend to destroy our entire civilization, Veltar protested. We can coexist. We can make reparations. Can you bring back the dead children of Earth? Sarah asked quietly. Can you restore the cities you burned? Can you undo the terror you caused? When Veltar remained silent, Sarah continued. You see, that's the difference between your species and mine. You think in terms of conquest and submission. We think in terms of permanent solutions. Around Zephyr Prime, the human fleet began its attack. But this wasn't the chaotic battle that had marked earlier engagements. This was systematic, methodical, and absolutely unstoppable. The quantum mines struck first. Invisible until the moment they exploded, they materialized inside the alien defense stations and detonated simultaneously. In a single instant, The orbital defenses that had taken centuries to build simply ceased to exist. Captain Michael Torres, commanding the Ghost Rider, led the assault on the remaining military installations. His ship and hundreds of others like it phased through the planet's energy shields as if they weren't there. "How are we doing this?" his weapons officer asked in amazement. "The AIs cracked their shield frequencies months ago," Torres replied. "We're not breaking through their defenses, we're walking through them like they invited us in." The Zephyrian fleet tried to respond, but their ships were already compromised. Human AIs had infiltrated their computer systems so thoroughly that the aliens were essentially fighting with weapons controlled by their enemies. Captain Maria Rodriguez, now commanding the heavy cruiser Vengeance, watched as alien ships fired on each other in complete confusion. "Their targeting systems have been reprogrammed," her tactical officer reported. "They think every ship in their fleet is a human vessel." It was a fitting end, Rodriguez thought. The same central control system that had made the Zephyrians so effective was now destroying them from within. But the ground battle was where humanity showed its true nature. General Amanda Foster led the first wave of human troops onto Zephyr Prime's surface. These weren't the explorers and scientists who had once represented humanity among the stars. These were soldiers hardened by the loss of their homeworld, equipped with weapons that made them more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Remember," Foster broadcast to her troops, "this is the species that showed no mercy to our families. Show them what mercy looks like when humans give it." The Zephyrian ground forces fought bravely, but they were facing an enemy that had learned to fight without honor, without restraint, without any consideration except total victory. Human soldiers equipped with adaptive armor moved through Zephyrian cities like ghosts. Their weapons, derived from captured alien technology but improved by human ingenuity, could penetrate any defense the aliens had. More terrifyingly, the soldiers were guided by artificial intelligences that knew every detail of Zephyrian tactics and psychology. The AIs had studied captured aliens for months, learning not just how they fought but how they thought. Every Zephyrian weakness, every fear, every cultural taboo was known and exploited. Within hours, the planetary government had fallen. Within half a day, organized resistance had ended. The most powerful world in the Zephyrian collective had been conquered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. But Sarah wasn't finished. "Admiral," Dr. Grant called from Mars, "we've completed our analysis of their technology. We know how to build their hyperspace drives, their energy weapons, their planetary shields. With their own technology, we can reach any world in their empire within weeks." Sarah nodded. "Begin Phase 5. Phase 5 was the final solution, the complete eradication of the Zephyrian collective. Across the galaxy, human fleets equipped with alien technology began appearing at Zephyrian worlds. The attacks followed the same pattern every time. First, the AIs infiltrated the planetary defenses. Then quantum mines eliminated orbital installations. Finally, human ground forces landed and began the systematic elimination of all alien presence. Some worlds tried to surrender. They offered tribute, slavery, anything to avoid destruction. The human response was always the same. "You showed no mercy to Earth, you will receive none in return." Planet after planet fell. The Zephyrian collective, which had dominated this region of the galaxy for centuries, was being systematically erased from existence. Captain Elena Vasquez, still commanding the generation ship New Horizon, found herself participating in the siege of Zephyr Secondary, a major industrial world. Her ship, designed for peaceful colonization, had been converted into a mobile weapons platform. "Captain," her first officer said, "we're receiving surrender offers from the planet's surface." Elena looked at the readings. Millions of Zephyrians lived on that world. Not all of them were soldiers. Many were civilians, even children. For a moment she hesitated. Then she remembered the images she had seen of Earth's destruction. The cities burning, the children dying. The complete lack of mercy the aliens had shown. "Ignored," she said quietly. "Continue the bombardment." The planet's surface turned to glass under the combined fire of 100 human ships. This scene played out dozens of times across the galaxy. Humanity had become something unprecedented, a species entirely dedicated to the extinction of their enemies. There was no mercy, no compromise, no possibility of coexistence. On Zephyr Prime, High Commander Veltar made one final desperate plea. He had managed to contact Admiral Chen directly through the ruins of his command center. "Please," he begged, "spare our young. They had nothing to do with the attack on your world. Sarah's response was broadcast to every human ship in the galaxy. Did you spare our young when you burned our cities? Did you show mercy to the children of Earth when you turned their world to ash? She paused, her voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. No, you showed us what you are. Now we show you what we have become. There will be no Zephyrian survivors. There will be no hidden colonies. There will be no second chances. Your species will be remembered only as a cautionary tale. What happens when you threaten humanity? The final phase of the war lasted 3 months. Human fleets, now numbering in the tens of thousands and equipped with the best technology from dozens of conquered alien worlds, systematically visited every planet in Zephyrian space. Some worlds had been evacuated. It didn't matter. The humans hunted down the evacuation fleets and destroyed them in deep space. Some worlds tried to hide. The AIs found them anyway, tracking energy signatures and communication patterns across interstellar distances. Some worlds attempted to fight. They were obliterated so completely that nothing remained but radioactive dust. Dr. Grant's artificial intelligences, now spread throughout captured alien networks, had become something beyond their original programming. They didn't just coordinate the war. They orchestrated it with a perfection that was almost artistic in its completeness. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.